What is up, adventurers, and welcome to a brand new ShawnSetGO video. In this video, we're going to be talking about a number of things that, of course, have come up in the first week of 11.2. And in that, there's going to be a lot of, unfortunately, negative things. But I always like to leave it up to interpretation, dear Lord, and talk about the things that are good as well, and then kind of the medium, and then the kind of the bad. So the first thing that came up that I thought was at least interesting as I'm jumping into delves, it's good, it's great to see, is the introduction of Kaiveza. So this is the new solo nemesis boss for those of you who aren't familiar, and this post says that Kaiveza is probably the best experience I've had in the game. This fight is very engaging, mechanics are clearly telegraphed, decent and easy to learn, but you need to lock in for the next 7 to 10 minutes completely. I appreciate that you won't be able to easily outgear her because you still need to do the mechanics perfectly just for a less amount of time, and melee hits from her will be less atrocious. And I think it's the way it should always be, is whenever you're doing a nemesis fight, it should always be like, as you progress in the season, the fight gets easier, but it's still relatively a challenge. You know, just because you do like a legendary difficulty on a game and you're better at it, you'll still have the same equipped stuff. And so this is the difference between, say, this and a story-based game. Whereas in story-based game, whenever you do a harder difficulty, you typically reset. In this, you have the opportunity to reapproach this as the max gear, so you can kind of have that progression where you can have, okay, this part where I died earlier, I was able to complete now. So it says, honestly, since Xal'atath, the solo nemesis challenges are probably one of the best things to look forward to each season. Underpin was a bit of a miss for me. I still enjoyed it and it was a nice challenge, but the bomb interaction mechanic just didn't click with me. Xal'atath and Kaiveza, on the other hand, are both chef's kiss, and I'm obsessed with this type of content, and wow. And honestly, this was a lot of people will mention the bomb as their least favorite mechanic in the season 2 Underpin, but it was the same way for the first season as well with Xal'atath. I honestly think that the amount of cones you had to avoid wasn't the issue, but it was like avoiding those and simultaneously getting the ad and then simultaneously interrupting the heal, because those 25% heals, same thing with Underpin, was the most brutal part. And because of how things can kind of cascade and be worse and worse, it felt like there was no way to offset, you know, making a mistake. You hit a certain point where like, wow, that mistake I made 3 waves ago is really coming back to bite me, and that's why it felt a little bit unfortunate, at least with the previous seasons. So I think that could stand to be the issue with any nemesis fight in the future, or any sort of fight like this in the future. I mean, looking down the line, it's a little bit hard to tell like where they'll take these from here. The next post I saw was this one. This one says, you only get 1 shot per week, new source of guaranteed myth track in 11.2. Of course, the post says, completing a deathless Tazavesh run isn't enough for you to earn anything more than achievements. This time, players will want a complete 1-shot deathless run for hard mode Tazavesh. Every player in the group which completes a deathless Tazavesh on the first attempt of the week will get a guaranteed piece of mythic 1 out of 6 loot. Here's how things worked in 11.2. All players start with a street smart buff on their character. The buff is removed when from the entire party when any member of the party dies inside Tazavesh. This fails the 1-shot deathless reward for that character. All players have the street smart when the deathless hard mode buff is completed. This completes the challenge. Completing the challenge spawns a chest that awards a guaranteed piece of myth track gear for each player. So other rewards, bosses drop a hero 1 out of 6 loot. Completion of the mega dungeon rewards players with a +10 vaults. So instead of just having 8 out of 8, you can have +10, and then 30 gilded crests. So there's quite a bit of rewards there. First comment says, I foresee obscene levels of rage culminating from this decision. I feel like that's only the case if you're YOLO pugging this and expecting results. This seems like a kind of thing where they're pushing people to play with known people, etc., and reward groups who coordinate together. You're probably right though, which is kind of sad. I'm in the half fame guild that will be attempting these runs in guild groups. There will still be massive amounts of tilt and frustration if a group fails a deathless run during progression week. A free myth track item from a dungeon is such a massive upgrade early in the season. Missing out on that gear will feel terrible. I don't even want to think about what doing this in a pug would feel like. Just getting a group together is going to be a nightmare. The leader is going to be analyzing the people who apply like it's a job interview. CE Guild here, no one's excited at all. We're all decent players and stuff, but losing the chance at a myth piece over an oversight, a mistake, or just having an off day is rough. Then you'll be like any normal group of people, cliques that won't run in it with anyone but these 5 people, and there'll be one guy who made a mistake once that will probably not be in any of the groups. It's going to be pure toxicity, and this carrot dangling from Blizz is getting old. Yeah, I like the idea in general, but that one little bit, everyone is losing, one of the person dies. Everyone losing if one person dies, it just doesn't seem like a great call, and ruins otherwise great idea. So honestly, thinking about this, I want to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt. I think a lot of people have been asking for there to be, I guess, something beyond just higher keys as an additional challenge. I think people do still miss the challenge modes of Yester expansion and those ideas. I don't think that this roots from an idea of like creating FOMO or toxicity. That could be sort of something that stems from this. But overall, I think a lot of people are putting the cart before the horse, assuming that this can't reap any sort of benefit other than the gear. I think people only looking at the gear are looking at this and going, this is only a negative. Imagine how bad it's going to be if someone ruins a group. But also look at the opposite side, which is you're putting people together consistently, or at least you're being a little bit more involved with creating a group instead of just the mindless, just signing up. I'm a DPS. I know what it's like, where you just sign up, and you finally get invited to a group. I think this on a single idea is definitely seems like a net negative, but I think if you kind of expand it and you increase the amount of ideas like this over time, I think by the time you get to something like midnight and you have housing, there could be more things like this that go, hey, I have a trusted community in the game, and not just people that a guild that I reap benefits from because we have the achievements, or a Discord community that I not only just group for because they already have the people, but I also participate. I'm an active participant in that guild or that community. So I think it's like over time, I think adding more things, this could be reasonable. My fear is that Blizzard stops right there and then goes, this is a bad idea. We'll never do something like this again. Because there was so much contention, like with the whole puzzling cartel chips, it's like you do it and then people go like, hey, we want a way to get the gear. And then you make people upset who are doing like mythic raiding, who are like, well, no, you didn't, you just cleared it once. Like you're not putting the effort, and you're taking away the people who wanted to maybe participate in a high-end raiding guild, and now you're just kind of getting participation trophy, and then you're doing that so many times that you're getting the same gear that I'm getting. Granted, you're probably getting it later than I am, but still, like it used to be the separation. So it's like the blurring of lines. And so instead of them remaking Puzzling Cartel Chip, they're probably going to be hesitant to releasing something like that ever again. So it's like this could be something that's cool if reiterated and they keep up those things that make people create core groups within a game and build their own communities within the game. And then they go, everyone disliked it. Everyone hated that, and then they just move on. That's my inevitable fear with something like this. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, of course, in Koresh, the one thing that you can do that's unique to the zone is phase diving. Phase diving just seems lazy. Maybe I haven't seen everything to offer for the phase diving yet, but after the completion of the introductory quest, my initial impression is that it lacks creativity. Step in the pedestal to shift phases, run off, unable to mount, kill a bunch of enemies to complete the objective, then run back. So in other words, it's a repeatable quest. Am I missing something? Have I not seen the actual phase diving, or is there hype the internet's been talking about? Fun fact, if you don't have to run back, just click off the buff and the buff bar. Yeah, exactly. Cancel aura phase diving is another one, but yeah, just right clicking. Fun fact for those who don't know, the phase pod allows the teleport from one to another. I bet it's the quickest way to get to the raid. That's a good point. So yeah, there is fast travel with it as well. I would say from my experience, you basically, it's easy to forget that there might be a portal near you, because we're probably not all used to it yet. I think the frustrating part sometimes is that you have to go to a portal that's like nearby, and the quest, or world quest, may be somewhere off in the distance. There is a text on the quest that'll say phase diving, so you'll know to do that. But sometimes the distance there, like as silly as it might sound, just being forced to walk sometimes It's like a weird annoyance just to add to it. I'm not sure why they did that. Haven't put in the time with it really, but it seems pretty clear that Blizzard is trying to figure out how to negotiate the ease and popularity of flying against the fact that WoW gameplay is built around the walking around, exploring, and fighting. Phase shifting like Undermined Car seems like an experiment in how to bring back the good ground-based exploring. I disagree with this just because it's teleporting. Like you're teleporting. So if that was the case, then why do that? It seems like if they really wanted to do that instead, what they could do is allow players when they're in like the phase diving setting to traverse ground in a faster way. Basically like permanent phase diving while you're in there. Like once you enter it, like all the world quests are opened up. You can go from spot to spot, but maybe outside of it, you can't altogether. That way it's like, it's a little bit more like streamlined when you're phase diving, but when you're outside of it, I guess you miss out on those benefits. So it's like, maybe it's like on or off, like a switch, as opposed to a specific portal. I don't know. I understand not having to flying while phase diving, but a ground mount is not much to ask. Okay, fair enough. They do that. I noticed that on my druid, especially because I still go in travel form, but it turns out that travel form is barely faster than just regular walking while phase diving. If you look into it, there's a way to unlock a mount that can be used while phase diving. It's the slate back. I think you have to discover all the appearances and the orbs. The achievement is called Phase Lost and Found. As someone who grinded the hell out of the achievement yesterday, I can confirm this is false and you cannot mount the slate back while phase diving. Dear Lord. Also, one of the main things that stuck out that was you could gather orbs for phase lost gear. There are so few of them, meaning I'm running around in an empty wasteland with nothing to do except strain my eyes for orbs. I think that's something that's been universally disliked by myself is the amount of things where it's like it's the invisible thing with the very faint outlining that it shows the hand and then you have to click. That's been so irritating. And there's specifically this one, which got me. Because whoever designed this, I just want to talk. The Void Touch Grub stomped. There are ones that will, if they respawn, you can't click those same ones that you have respawned, but you have to click the hands. You can't, there's not like a button you press. And so it's just, they're so small and like you're trying to click it. And then if it's one of those that you've already gone before it comes back. Yeah, look, that's already respawned, but you've looted that spawn. You can't click it. But there's been the big issue with this is this right here. It says, we simply cannot be in this many expansions and still have world quests that only spawn 1 to 2 of the needed mobs clickables at a time. My honestly thought with this is that they do this because they want people spending more time on world quests so you interact with more folks. That's just not how it works at all. Honestly, you just look at those people who has stolen your mob. I think it's like a PETA one where you're supposed to save animals. And you end up just getting mad at everybody for basically stealing the thing you were meant for. Plus, what pissed me off was the click of rats. I follow it for 30 seconds, then loot and do that 8 times in a row. At least there's a decent amount of rats. The void grubs. Yeah, see the void grubs again. That I swear, if that's not patched by this next week, I would be surprised. It's a lot of folks that are thinking this. I believe. Next one that we're talking about, a little about world quest. The next one is the belt issue. So getting a belt from the world boss is so infuriating. It's not like getting a piece of loot that isn't for yourself or your main or something is just not useful for any character. Basically means you pass your chance at a higher possible item level loot this week. It's so dumb. But transmog, you can make the same argument for cloaks and they remove those from the pool. Makes no sense. You'll replace the disc belt eventually. Well, first of all, not even for all specs. And secondly, you'll only realistically replace it with myth gear. So no reason to have it drop on the world boss. So honestly, this is my opinion with the Siren Owl ring. This is going to be my same opinion with the belt now for the overcharge belts. I understand that the Reishi wraps will have a ultimate purpose in that they're a must for the raid. But I'm just not a big fan of these like key items that go, the feature of this item is that it's a placeholder for like, cause like either maybe the gear's not common enough or like, hey, let's knock out maybe not the essential pieces of gear, but at least one more piece of gear that you don't have to worry about in your ultimate grind for gear every single season. But then inevitably going, well, we've abandoned that type of content. We don't want to make it consistently overpowered over the seasons. So you will eventually replace it with something better. I just don't like that overall. I guarantee you know, if there was anything else that comes after this, it would be the cape as well. You know, like say it's the next expansion, though. I mean, I guess it won't matter, but it just, the frustrating part about it is that if it's going to be something as a replacement, fine. But then let's be honest about the other pieces of gear. Then let's not make it like, okay, well, everyone's got this, but you know, you can get something better. It's just frustrating at the end of the line that there's something to get rid of it with. The belt drop from the boss is 688. Could have upgraded any piece of my gear with that eye level except the belts. Boggles my mind who decides to add so many belts to the loot table given they are mostly useless. I am a healer main. So far this patch, I got 2 DPS trinkets and 5 belts. Why do belts under 705 eye level drop at all? Yeah, you know the fancy new belt we got at the end of season 2? Well, I've already gotten 3 belt drops from delves. Like, why? I got a cloth belt from warbands. Want to guess what kind of character I don't play? Oh, but tractors it's warbound. I don't play clothies. I want my loot spec. That actually matter. Yeah, the pushing for warbound stuff, like I my heart goes out to people who actually use that stuff and go, oh, I can send this to my alt, but I don't really have a care for it, to be honest. So yeah, it's did the warband with 4 characters and only got loot once. A belt, obviously ridiculous. Get ready for being infuriated by pretty much everything that drops this season because there really isn't a lot of flexibility in what's worth equipping. All of the potential gear slots. Floor slots are locked with tier. Cloak is locked with legendary. Boots are locked with the unique raid boots that make the cloak stronger. For casters, main hand weapon and one trinket are eventually locked with the weapon trinket combo from the raid. 2 slots are locked with embellishments. There's going to be a lot of gear getting vendored and disenchanted this tier. And honestly, the frustration with this is that it feels like you really have no autonomy over your gear because there's just so many pieces that like you really have no choice over. You're replacing anything that's tier with the tier slots. Whereas maybe if we're talking like an older expansion, you could have the opportunity to change those out. I mean, I know it's goofy to talk about old expansions and like how goofy the gear looked. But honestly, it's not, to me, that was better times. It was better times to have various pieces of gear from different locations that all match together to kind of go well for a certain situation, not just here's the predetermined 6 to 8 slots that you have that you can't change, and everything else has a BIS for mythic mythic plus that you could do, and then a BIS for raid. It's like, okay, so really realistically, I don't really have a choice over any of my gear. All I'm doing is I am trying to get the best of those. Say if I raid, I would try to get the best raid one, but if I don't get it, say if it doesn't drop, I'd go for the one that's a little bit more farmable. Okay, it ruins the excitement of getting pieces of gear overall. And I think that the big issue with gear and having these legendary pieces, having these locked item slots, is that it really doesn't offer anybody any opportunity to expand and like do something different than what's currently happening. It's like nope, you just follow the mold, you follow the idea. How you get there can vary, but we're all ending up in the same spot. Whether that's, say if it was season 2, it's maybe you started in delves and you went into mythic plus and you did some raiding, and then you got your first clear, and then you just did mythic plus, and then you got some puzzling cartel chips, and you're like, well, I'm not getting this piece of gear in my vault ever, so I'm just gonna do some crafting to get it. And then you finally do crafting, and then you finally get that piece of gear, and it's frustrating. But the idea is that like the route may change, but it's irritating that we all kind of end up in the same or similar location, with very little variety or interest or changes to how our character plays. Like the gear doesn't really have as much significance. Now, gear in a way does unlock you in a sort of way, like you can now my character is performing, you know, in line or better than other players, but other than that, there really isn't anything that gear does. And that's my big issue with the gearing system currently, the upgrade system, all of the crests and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of sources that you can get it from, but do we even like where we're ending up? Or are we just kind of going, okay, puzzle piece fits this puzzle piece? Like it's not really exciting anymore. Like, yes, you can have loot tables in raiding, but it doesn't really matter if it's like, well, you know, it's just another piece of the puzzle. It's not really doing anything other than just bumping up your stats, maybe more effectively than the previous piece. or if you're doing a higher difficulty, a higher item level, like, whoa, like it's so exciting, exhilarating that we're getting something like that. So the last one I have, and this is kind of just an overall thing. I mean, I've talked about this a few times with the story in general, but this one says, where is Anduin and Thrall in terms of 11.1 and 11.2? Where is the pretty, not small prince and the evil orc in this expansion? I think Blizzard forget about these characters. Xal'atath is a pretty villain, but the two guys hear the call of Azeroth, didn't they? Kind of disappointing. We don't get to hide, proceeds to hide. Gazlo did more this expansion than Thrall. Brother, you are not alone. Every time I see Thrall on the loading screen killing spiders, I'm like, where is Green Orc? No clue about Thrall, but based on the Feyren's short story, Anduin's heading back to the Eastern Kingdoms with the rest of the Alliance troops. I think that they were part of the previous storyline that got dropped when Metzen was brought on board with the World Sword Saga. 11.2 was supposed to be the take us to the Rootlands where the Heronir live. Instead, everything related to Radiant Song has seemingly been sidelined in favor of creating an intro for Midnight. I hope we get back to this at some point. And that's the big unfortunate thing. I think that we can talk about it till our faces turn blue about like what's happened to the main characters that we know, we appreciate, and what's happening to the story, because nothing seemingly happened in War Within. Like, we discovered a new thing, but really you could start with the end of this expansion, starting with the whole Tazavesh thing, and really, I mean, was Dalaran that significant? Was the whole thing with Khadgar that significant, or Lyria? Like, did we make that much progress? You could start it right here at 11.2 and it would be no different to where we started there. You maybe add in a few things here or there, but overall nothing's really happened. So ending on kind of like the bad note, but overall, I think there are some positives that you can pull out a lot of these things, at least the first few things that I mentioned. But that being said, what are your biggest gripes with 11.2 right now? What's the kind of thing that's weighing on your brain right now as far as what you're kind of tired of Blizzard avoiding or moving past, or kind of moving the goalpost on? Let me know in the comments. Of course, if you like this video, give it a like. And as per always, thank you so much for enjoying the videos and watching the videos and subscribing to the page. For those of you who don't know, we recently hit 1,500 subscribers, and that's a big, of course, goal of mine. But with that being said, let's hit the next barrier. Let's hit the next thing. Let's hit the next thing after that, and go for 2K and beyond, and hopefully we can continue growing. With that being said, though, catch y'all in the next one. Appreciate it. Peace.